One of our basic human needs is the need for love and connection with others. With this being an essential need to our existence, we strive to maintain long-lasting love in our romantic relationships. Sometimes people misinterpret the change in love over the course of our relationship and see it as the love has disappeared and the couple has learned to just tolerate one another. In actuality, as time passes, our love for our partner transitions from passionate to companionate love. This transition is necessary for healthy, lasting relationships. Another major contributing factor in the longevity of relationships in this day and age is the media. The media can romanticize love in a way that is not realistic, so this skews people's view of what real love should look like. The key to staying in love is understanding and expecting what love realistically looks like, as well as knowing how to properly maintain and nourish a relationship for a lifetime. So the question we ask is whether or not two people can actually stay in love, or if at some point all relationships turn into two people just tolerating each other. Looking into academic research, popular press articles, and real stories and experiences from love experts as well as friends and acquaintances, we have concluded staying in love is possible with hard work, desire, and commitment. All healthy long-term relationships undergo a transition from passionate to companionate love. Some may view this transition as falling out of love, but as Aziz Ansari wrote in his book Modern Romance, the transition from passionate to companionate love doesn't mean that the people in the relationship don't love each other anymore, but that they have transitioned to a different, long-lasting type of love.
So you kind of go from that honeymoon stage to where you're best friends, or even if you guys were best friends going into it, you kind of have that really intense section in the beginning, and then I feel like maybe that doesn't go away, but more of that best friend and being there and kind of caring for each other kind of increases, and I think it makes your relationship stronger.
In 2015, Masucci gives 5 tips to handle the end of the honeymoon phase of your relationship. Number 1, notice the signs and don't think immediately that the relationship is failing. Number 2, take the opportunity to set boundaries and set the tone for future interactions. Number 3, discover why you're upset through introspective reflecting. Number 4, embrace conflict. Disagreement doesn't mean incompatibility, so you have to work for a resolution. And number 5, know when to call it. If mutual respect, trust, common interest, mutual fulfillment, and safety are missing, you are not in the right relationship. Sheet's 2014 study recognizes that the passionate love stage is positively associated with self-expansion, which occurs through the integration of qualities and characteristics of the partner into oneself.
When we were first starting to get to know each other, because it's been about 2 years now, so when we were first getting to know each other, there was a lot of staying up until 4 a.m. and then waking up at 7 a.m. to go to class and only getting 3 hours of sleep, but it didn't matter because we wanted that time together and we wanted to get to know each other. And now I don't think we're as passionate as I don't think anyone is ever as passionate as they are in the honeymoon stage, because some of that is just adrenaline and you're so excited and it's something new and you're figuring it out and everything is happening all at once. Maybe passion's not the right word to describe it, because my feelings haven't changed and how I feel about him hasn't changed at all. So I think it's the same level of passion. I think that just priorities kind of come into play. That you start to become a part of each other's lives and it becomes natural.
Dr. Janet Lever, a co-author of the Chapman University study, was encouraged by finding 1/3 of couples kept passion alive even after a decade or two of being together, which won't happen on autopilot, but making a conscious effort to keep the love alive.
Having the children had something to do with it, just because of the lack of time that you could spend together alone.
It wasn't. Once the children came, the passion kind of took a back seat, unfortunately, because of time restraints and so on. You tried to make time for yourselves, but there was always something going on.
Your lives get busy, unfortunately, and you tend to concentrate on your children and activities that they have and
Right.
and trying.
More than yourselves.
Yeah, then you kind of lose track of yourselves as a passionate couple.
But it's not a bad thing, because
No.
once you're satisfied that which direction your children are heading, then it gives you a chance, once they get older, to kind of rekindle your marriage a little bit. So it's exciting.
Me, I've never experienced unconditional love, and that's a big thing. Unconditional love and just love is major different. Unconditional love, I can do something so stupid, completely stupid, and we will sit and talk and he'll forgive me, and we'll move on, and that's unconditional love, and I've never had that before.
And I don't think the definition of in love is necessarily all about romance and honeymoon and, that type thing. You build a mutual respect. You find ways to have fun, and you just enjoy each other's company. So it's like your best bud when you're a preteen. Only that best bud now is your life partner that's perfect. But that's, to me, that's in love. If you have that person that you can share your life with, and you both enjoy the same type things, and when issues arise, you're able to solve them because you're close enough to talk it all out. To me, that's in love, and I think you can be in love with the same person if that's the way you both are all through your time together until you both die.
Huffstetler found marriages have the best chance for success when both partners have low needs for freedom and power and high needs for love and belonging and fun, and an average need for survival in a 2004 study.
And I think, another thing to have a long and happy relationship is to find things that you're both interested in doing and explore new things, places to go, things to do where you have enjoyment together. So whether that's traveling or going for a hike or a bike ride, doing things together.
Hall found in 2013 that the intended use of humor in a message or behavior can help achieve communicative goals specific to the relationship at hand. It is good to spend quality time finding things you enjoy and finding things that you both find fun or humorous, because it can increase the success of your communication with your partner as well.
I think my best piece of advice would just be communication. I think people say that all the time and it gets a little cliche, but I think that's the most important, especially in a day where we text and we don't really see each other face to face a whole lot. Things can be taken a lot differently. And even I just think keeping those open lines of communication can help when you're planning things or when things are going on in your day, and just really helping the other person understand where you're coming from so there's not as many assumptions with what's going on.
Communication. Life is not always perfect, so when things go wrong, you have to communicate to one another.
I mean, any relationship, you can stop communicating at any time, but you've got to have that desire to keep doing it.
Definitely the communication aspect and compromising. So I think that you always have to be able to be willing, you have to negotiate. You have to be willing to negotiate because you're never going to agree on all of the same things. If you like one movie, but he doesn't like one movie, you have to make a decision and find something in the middle. You have to be willing to do things for them as well. Your relationship should be split evenly down the middle, because if it outweighs, if one of you outweighs the other with what you do for them or how you act or who gets their way more, it'll become a conflict. So,
relationships, and love especially, takes a conscious effort to make things work. There are many ways relationships can come to an end, and we need to make sure that we have the desire, commitment, and work ethic to avoid these detrimental behaviors that could terminate a long-lasting relationship. Firestone in Psychology Today named 7 common behaviors that destroy loving relationships. These were: 1. Having angry reactions to feedback instead of being open to it. 2. Being closed to new experiences instead of open to new things. 3. Using deception and duplicity instead of honesty and integrity. 4. Overstepping boundaries instead of showing respect for them. 5. Showing a lack of affection and inadequate, impersonal, and routine sexuality instead of physical affection and personal sexuality. 6. Misunderstanding instead of understanding. And 7. Being manipulative, dominant, or submissive. Though these 7 behaviors are what Firestone found to be the most common to destroy loving relationships, many people have their own opinions of what would be the deciding factor.
The biggest one is cheating, because you build a whole friendship on trust. Okay? And, you may spend too much money at the grocery store. That's not breaking trust. That's just an irritation. But if I'm at the house and you're kissing on some dude, to me, that's a big break in trust. And it's hard to, or for someone with my personality, it's hard to forgive to the point that you're comfortable back in the relationship the way it was. So I think that's big.
The biggest thing would be unfaithfulness. Totally, I could not tolerate that. I wouldn't tolerate that at all.
And I think for me, when you stop unconditionally loving someone, that's the reason you would terminate a relationship. You have to accept them for who they are, good, bad, and keep that commitment.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the jealousy of a man having, interest in another woman, or, a woman being jealous of someone looking at her husband, or her husband looking at, him, or vice versa. You can also have jealousy of how much free time do you have versus how much free time your spouse might have. Someone who might have a full-time job versus someone who has a part-time job. Just that jealousy of, free time versus active time, work versus not working. But to me, that's all like either envy or jealousy, and that's a really bad component of someone's relationship. I think it could lead itself to disaster.
Another culprit of destroying loving relationships is uncertainty. Relational uncertainty, talked about in Boucher's 2015 article, can stem from the self, your partner, or the relationship. This idea of uncertainty ties into jealousy. You start to doubt you or your partner's involvement in the relationship, as well as the nature of the relationship that stems from this involvement. The media comes into play with our doubts and expectations when it comes to our own experiences as well. People who watch romantic comedies in order to learn reported stronger endorsement of romantic ideal beliefs, as found in Hefner's 2013 study. In 2016, Botten stated that our cultural voices have, to our huge cost, set us up with the wrong expectations. They've highlighted emotions that don't tell us very much that is useful about how to make relationships work. Romanticism has had a devastating impact on the ability of ordinary people to lead successful emotional lives.
When you look at social media, you see these happy couples and you know that they're not that happy all the time, but you still get those certain expectations that there's, that you have to live up to, even though you know it's not the whole picture. You still think that you should be that happy all the time, or maybe you guys don't look that happy, and things like that.
In 2012, Osborne found that the results of his study showed that both heavier viewing of romantically themed programming and greater beliefs of TV's portrayals of the romantic relationships were associated with lower marital commitment, higher expected and perceived costs of marriage, and more favorable perceptions of alternatives to one's current relationship. Sapala references a Stony Brook University study where 247 couples married for 10 or more years were studied and found a large percent were still intensely in love. Thinking positively about one's partner is another common element of a couple's intensely in love, according to the findings. When people see each other every day, they can sometimes take each other for granted and stop noticing the characteristics they used to appreciate about their mate. However, a little awareness and gratitude may go a long way in countering this tendency. When we get to know someone well, we naturally learn about their strengths and weaknesses, but it is really up to us whether we choose to focus on one side or the other. Focusing on the positive and being grateful for our partner can't help but make you feel more intensely in love.
Special about that person that you appreciate. So you kind of look on the bright side of it, so to speak, rather than the negative side of it.
Yeah, it's easier to look for the negative stuff in people. Look for the good and concentrate on that, and you'll be happier.
In 2014, Smith interviewed psychologist John Gottman, who did physiological studies and research with couples over time. He found the habit of masters, or people who stay in love in lasting relationships, was the fact that they were constantly searching their social environment for things they could appreciate and say thank you for. Building a culture of respect and appreciation goes a long way.
You know, the theme being more like patience and respect, you know, you really had to remember that and keep that in the back of your mind and realize that you married somebody because you love them and you wanted to, you know, stay and get that basic love back. So.
Horan's 2010 study mentions affection exchange theory and argues that affectionate communication fosters long-term survival in relationships. In Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, he's quoted saying, "I dream of a day when the potential of married couples in this country can be unleashed for the good of humankind, when husbands and wives can live life with full emotional love tanks and reach out to accomplish their potential as individuals and as couples." As we can see, there are many aspects of relationships that can interfere with the love that is there, but it is possible with hard work and a conscious effort to work towards keeping that love and passion alive within your relationship. In conclusion, we found we can stay in love in our relationships forever. Though there are times and issues where we tolerate one another, we are capable of working through and getting past with the right kind of hard work and love for our partner.
It's possible, whether it be Peter and I or other couples that we know. We have a lot of friends, and I mentioned this to you before, that are still married and are still in love, and we're a very good example, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Hear, hear.
I think you can actually stay in love. I think that you have to realize and go back to why you're together to begin with, and when you realize that you love the person, that carries you through, and it will carry you through, and you'll always have it. But it does take work, and it does take recognition and thought process and talking and physical actions to show that.
And I would say, you have, like anything, it doesn't just happen. You have to work at it, and over your life you have different ebbs and flows and things like that. And if you look big picture and really even the long-term benefit, you think of that if you can get through the hard times, there are good times that come that you can really have a lot of enjoyment together when some of the dust settles on the hard years. The hard years are when you're juggling kids and long hours and jobs, and to be able to get through that and have the reward of kids that you raised come out good and on the other end, and have a relationship that you can kind of revert back to and enjoy times together. That's kind of the reward at the end of the tunnel, and almost get back to the relationship you had in the beginning.
I mean, that's what you want. You want to find somebody that's like your friend, your best pal in life, and then once you got your best friend, of course you love your best friend, and then you stay in love. You don't tolerate. Sometimes toleration can happen because of events, but it's the love that you build that you continue to have until you die.
For me, I think it's possible to stay in love forever. However, that love changes. It gets, instead of infatuation, I think it gets deeper and more caring and sincere.
Yeah, I think love lasts forever. I think, it just changes all the time, and it just gets better. That's all I can say about love. I think it's work at it every day. Listen to the other person. Understand how they may be feeling and put yourself second. Think about them first and realize why they're saying what they're saying.
I have to agree. I think a good portion of marriage is hearing what the other person has to say, and really listening, not reacting, but listening to what they're talking about, what everybody's talking about, what they're communicating with, what they have to say about their feelings, about their family, about situations. I think communication.
Oh, most definitely people can stay in love.